If you've ever started making more money, and somehow your life got more expensive, your relationships got weird, and your peace got worse, you're in the right place. Because there's a hidden rule about money that almost nobody talks about. Sometimes, the fastest way to lose your wealth is to let people know you have it. In this video, I'm going to show you why telling people you're doing well financially can quietly destroy your progress, how social pressure turns into financial pressure, and why silence might be one of the highest return money moves you can make. And stick with me, because the difference between staying quiet and just celebrating a little can literally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. You know that moment when your bank account finally starts looking good for the first time in your life, and suddenly you feel this urge to let people know? Not even in a cocky way. Just a little comment, a little screenshot, a little, yeah, things have been going pretty well lately. And then, somehow, within like 3 weeks, your life gets more expensive, your relationships get weirder, and you start feeling guilty for money you haven't even spent yet. That's the trap. Because most people think getting rich solves money stress. Look, sometimes it just changes the shape of the stress. Now, instead of wondering, how am I going to pay rent? You start wondering, why do I suddenly feel like I owe everybody access to my success? And if that sounds dramatic, but it's really not. Because the second other people know you have money, you're no longer just building wealth. You're managing expectations. You're managing other people's projections. You're managing their envy, their curiosity, their assumptions, their requests, their jokes, their little comments, their emergency situations, and their idea of what a small favor should mean to you now. And here's the thing. One of the dumbest financial assumptions people make is this. If I become successful, I should show it. No, not if you actually want to stay successful. Because wealth is a seed, and the second you drag that seed out of the ground every 5 minutes so everybody can admire it, you make it a lot harder for it to grow. This video is about why silence is one of the highest return money moves you can make. Not because you should be secretive and weird, not because money is shameful, but because privacy protects compounding, and that idea can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Let me give you a super relatable example. Say you're 29. You've been grinding for years. You finally get the big promotion. Your income jumps from $78,000 to $120,000. Maybe you also started investing a few years ago, and now your brokerage account is crossing 6 figures. For the first time ever, you feel ahead. And what do most people do? They signal, maybe not in some cartoon villain way. It's subtler than that. They upgrade the apartment. They start casually paying for group dinners. They post the trip. They mention the bonus. They joke about finally doing all right. They start dressing a little differently around people who knew them when they were broke, and they think they're just celebrating. But here's the truth nobody talks about. The second your social circle updates their mental model of you, your financial life changes. Not mathematically at first, socially. And social pressure becomes financial pressure really, really fast. Because once people think you have money, they stop reacting to you based on who you are and start reacting to you based on what they think you can absorb. The expensive bachelor trip? Come on, you can afford it. The wedding gift? I mean, you're doing well. The family loan? It's not a big deal for you. The business idea your friend wants you to invest in? I thought you believed in me. This is where it gets really interesting. Most wealth destruction does not begin with a catastrophic stock market mistake. It begins with identity drift. You stop acting like the person who builds wealth and start acting like the person who has to perform wealth. And those are completely different people. Let's do the math, because this is where people underestimate how brutal the problem is. Let's go back to that person making $120,000. Maybe after taxes and benefits, their raise increases take-home pay by roughly $2,000 a month. Now imagine two versions of this person. Version A keeps quiet. They increase their lifestyle a little bit, sure, but they automatically invest $1,500 of that extra $2,000 every single month. Version B tells everybody they're doing great. And because people now see them differently, and because they start seeing themselves differently, their fixed and variable spending quietly expands. Nicer apartment, plus $500 a month. More dinners, social expectations, gift inflation, plus $300 a month. A better car or higher car payment plus $400 a month. Random I got it moments and emotional spending plus $300 a month. That's $1,500 a month gone. Same raise, same intelligence, same opportunity, completely different outcome. If version A invests $1,500 a month for 20 years at an 8% annual return, that ends up around $883,000. Not because they were a genius, because they stayed boring. That's the part people hate. Wealth is usually built through long periods of emotional unsexiness. Quiet automation, low visibility, no applause, no announcement, no audience. And the crazy part is, the audience is often what destroys the outcome. Now you might be thinking, okay, but why do I even want to tell people? Great question. Because telling people you're doing well gives you an immediate psychological payout, validation, status, relief, proof that the struggle meant something. If you were broke, overlooked, stressed, insecure, or underestimated for years, wealth can feel like evidence that you finally matter. And that is dangerous, because if money becomes your way of securing belonging, you will spend it to maintain that belonging. You'll use it to avoid awkwardness. You'll use it to look generous. You'll use it to look established. You'll use it to avoid disappointing people. You'll use it to avoid looking cheap in rooms that suddenly expect more from you. That is not a math problem. That is a psychology problem. And psychology beats spreadsheets all the time. Morningstar featured behavioral finance researcher Daniel Crosby discussing how financial contentment is shaped not just by how much money people have, but also by who they compare themselves to. In other words, your sense of enough can get hijacked by your reference group almost as much as by your actual bank balance. So, if you tell people you're rich, or you start signaling that you are, you've just changed your reference class. Yesterday, a $60 dinner felt expensive. Today, you're the successful one. So now saying no feels embarrassing. Yesterday, a used car looked practical. Today, it feels like you're underplaying your own success. Yesterday, you were proud of maxing out your Roth IRA. Today, you're wondering whether your kitchen is nice enough for people to come over. Look, this is why otherwise smart people stay broke looking on paper, even while earning a lot. Their income grew faster than their emotional ability to resist social comparison. MIT AgeLab has written about how social comparison influences savings behavior. In one study, when people were shown how their savings compared with others, those labeled poor or fair savers were more likely to go back and increase their savings choices. That is such an eye-opener because it shows how strongly our financial behavior shifts once comparison enters the room. Now, flip that logic around. If comparison can push people to save more, it can absolutely push people to spend more. Because if the social feedback changes the way you see yourself, it changes the way you act. That means wealth disclosure is not neutral. It doesn't just inform people. It changes the game you're playing. And social media makes this worse. Because money used to be local. Now it's performative. You're not just telling your cousin you're doing well. You're telling your old classmates, your coworkers, your extended network, your ex, your friends' friends, and a bunch of strangers who interpret your life through tiny, context-free clips. That is how a financial win becomes a social identity. And once that happens, silence gets harder, because now you feel like you have to keep the story going. Another mistake people make is they assume money is solid the moment it appears. It's not. Early wealth is fragile, very fragile. A $150,000 portfolio feels huge when you've never had money before. But in reality, that's not enough to retire. It's not enough to permanently absorb bad decisions. It's not enough to become the family bank. It's not enough to fund multiple lifestyle upgrades and still compound into freedom. Same with a raise. A jump from $80,000 to $130,000 can absolutely change your life if you protect it. But if you inflate your visible lifestyle too quickly, all you did was upgrade your obligations. And the Federal Reserve's 2024 household well-being data is a reminder of how fragile most people's finances still are. 63% of adults said they could cover a $400 emergency expense with cash or its equivalent, and only 55% had set aside 3 months of emergency savings. That means financial stress is still common, which also means visible wealth can change how people relate to you very quickly. I want you to really sit with that. If a lot of people around you are financially stretched, and you become known as the person who is doing great, that can create pressure even when nobody is trying to be manipulative. Sometimes it's not malicious. Sometimes your success just makes you look like the safest place to direct need. And that can be emotionally brutal if you're not prepared. There's research from the Institute of Labor Economics looking at lottery winners and social ties. One of the interesting findings is that larger wins can change relationship patterns. People may spend more time with friends while relying less on practical support networks. Translation: money doesn't just add comfort, it can reorganize the purpose and structure of your relationships. And that makes total sense, because relationships have layers. Some are emotional, some are practical, some are status-based, some are based on mutual struggle, some are based on convenience. When your financial position changes, those layers get rearranged. The broke you and the rich you do not occupy the same role in other people's minds. That doesn't mean everybody becomes fake. It means money changes context. And if you announce your wealth too early or too loudly, you don't give your relationships time to adjust naturally. You force the adjustment. That's when things get weird. That's when people start making jokes about you paying. That's when you can't tell if someone's asking for help because they trust you or because they've mentally spent your money already. That's when resentment starts on both sides. They think you've changed. You think they've changed, and maybe both things are true. There's also a practical reason to shut up about your money. Privacy has value. The FTC's financial privacy guidance exists because personal financial information needs protection. Federal rules require financial institutions to safeguard customer data and protect against misuse and pretexting, where people try to get financial information under false pretenses. Experian's explanation of stealth wealth makes the same basic point in plain English. Keeping your finances private can help reduce awkward requests from friends and family, support living below your means, and lower exposure to theft or identity theft-related risks. Now, obviously, telling your cousin you got a raise is not the same as handing a scammer your social security number, but the principle is the same. Information about your money is valuable. Once it's out, you do not control how it spreads, how it's interpreted, or who uses it. And rich people who last a long time understand that. They don't just protect their assets, they protect the story around their assets. Let me tell you a quick story. A guy I'll call Marcus sells a chunk of equity in a business. Not retire on a yacht money, but enough to completely change his financial future if he handles it right. He's sitting on $400,000 after taxes. Incredible position. At first, he's smart. He says he's going to invest most of it. Then he tells a few people. Big mistake. Because now the money stops being a plan and starts being a public event. One friend wants in on a startup. A sibling wants help with back rent. His parents start talking about how nice it would be to renovate the kitchen. He upgrades apartments because, well, I can afford it now. He starts picking up tabs because saying no feels awkward. He buys the watch not because he loves watches, but because after a while it feels weird to have money and not look like you have money. 2 years later, he hasn't blown all of it, but the engine is damaged. Instead of having maybe $500,000 plus growth working quietly in the background, he has a bunch of scattered obligations, some illiquid mistakes, a bigger monthly burn rate, and this weird emotional exhaustion every time someone brings up money. That's the real cost. Not just what left the account, what left his focus, what left his optionality, what left his peace. Now you might be thinking, okay, Dave, but I want to enjoy my success. Good. You should. This is not an argument for pretending to be broke forever. It's an argument for delaying visibility until the wealth is strong enough to handle visibility. That's different. You might also be thinking, but I want to inspire people. Totally fair. But there's a huge difference between teaching what you learned and broadcasting your numbers. You can talk about discipline, investing, career growth, and smart habits without turning your net worth into community property. And another objection. What if I want to help my family? Then help them intentionally, not reactively. Create a giving budget, set rules, decide in advance what you will and won't do. Because random generosity under emotional pressure is how resentment gets baked into relationships. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become clear. So let's make this useful. If you're earning more, investing more, or building real wealth right now, here's what I'd do immediately. First, separate money transparency from wealth broadcasting. You can absolutely have healthy, honest conversations about money with a spouse, business partner, financial advisor, therapist, or a tiny circle of deeply trusted people. That is not the same as casually telling everybody you're up. One creates clarity, the other creates noise. Second, create a need-to-know list. Literally write down the names of the people who actually need visibility into your finances. For most people, that list is shockingly short. Third, install a raise quarantine. Anytime your income jumps, lock in at least 50% of the increase into investing for 12 months before upgrading anything visible. No new car, no bigger apartment, no "I deserve this" spiral. Just let the new income stack for a year. That gives your brain time to calm down and your net worth time to become real. Fourth, pre-write your boundary scripts. This matters more than people think. If someone asks how much you make, I keep that stuff pretty private, but I'm focused on saving aggressively right now. If someone hints that you should pay, I'm being pretty intentional with money at the moment. If someone wants a loan, I don't do personal loans, but I can help you think through options. Short, calm, no apology tour. Fifth, keep your lifestyle upgrades mostly invisible at first. A better mattress, better health care, paying off high-interest debt, maxing retirement accounts, building cash reserves, therapy, buying back your time carefully, hiring tax help, getting proper insurance. That stuff changes your life. It just doesn't impress random people, which is exactly why it works. Sixth, create a generosity line item. If helping people matters to you, amazing. Put an actual number on it. Maybe it's $200 a month. Maybe it's 2% of income. Maybe it's one family assist per year. But if you don't define generosity, other people will define it for you. Seventh, watch your social media. If you're serious about wealth, stop turning every upgrade into a broadcast. Not because success is bad, because attention is expensive. But here's the hidden reality. The richest person in the room is often not the loudest one. It's usually the one with the lowest need to prove it. That person understands that money is not just arithmetic. It's emotional insulation. It's time. It's choice. It's the ability to say no without panic. It's the ability to leave bad situations. It's the ability to think long term. And every time you expose your wealth to unnecessary social pressure, you leak some of that power, not all at once, just little by little, a dinner here, a favor there, a guilt payment here, a status purchase there. And then 10 years later, people say, "Wow, I made good money. Where did it all go?" Usually not to one giant mistake, usually to 100 tiny performances. So if you get rich, tell no one. Or, more accurately, tell almost no one. Tell the people who need to know. Tell the people who can handle it. Tell the people who won't turn your future into a group project. But beyond that, let your wealth grow in peace. Let it compound without commentary. Let it become strong before it becomes visible. Because broke people think wealth is about looking successful. Wealthy people learn that real success is needing less attention from other people in the first place. And that is a much bigger flex. If this video helped you think differently about money, subscribe, hit the like button, and drop a comment with one financial habit you're trying to keep more private and more disciplined this year. And remember, you do not owe the world proof that you're winning. You owe yourself the chance to stay winning.